you, I was right! Fuck you, I was right!
Hello there, my Gummy Knights, and welcome back to the Echo Chamber. Now, look, I know that you guys are expecting me to acknowledge the fact that that intro was a little bit pedantic and quite narcissistic, but I'm not going to lie, I am feeling myself. I mean, what else can I honestly say besides the idea of what was presented at the intro of the video? I was right about literally everything. I'm not sitting here saying that I was the initial one to blow the whistle. I'm going to assume that the law of averages dictates the idea that there were other people besides me who were out there promoting the same ideas. Okay, but at least in terms of the front in regards to making videos and stuff on it, I was at least one of the first people. Okay, because everyone else was constantly dick sucking. And when I say dick sucking, I mean they could not get it out their throats for more than 2.5 seconds to see that this was absolutely tragic in terms of the folly in people's logic and inconsistencies when it came to the show of Daima. Now that it's over, I mean, there is so much to talk about, but there are three main things in regards to my proving myself correct that I want to sit there and go over, and that there is no longer any debate on, because I got sick and tired of people just not accepting the truth, like I have. Daima is its own thing. Daima is its own beast. We are under the Daima timeline. Look, a lot of the problems that exist within Daima in terms of a narrative or storytelling beat, that being that the story is weak in a lot of areas, and the fact that the continuity in regards to its own internal consistency and logic doesn't hold up. It's still a minutia of stuff, because what really mattered in regards to the world building was how it affected the lore of other shows going forward. That being mainly Dragonballsuper, because it's supposed to take place before Dragonballsuper. But here's the issue and problem. I brought this up in my last video, well, not my direct last video, but in my last video related to Daima when I was talking about Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, and everyone kept trying to debate me in the comments. Everyone kept trying to come at and say that, oh, it doesn't matter that we have bad writing, or maybe it could still work within Super. We don't know. Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta may just be something that could absolutely have some merit. But ultimately, the last few episodes, particularly episodes 18, 19, and 20, have debunked any notion related to the idea of one of the most fundamental things related to Daima, and that is its continuity. Like I was saying in my bit of a tangent on that, is that most of the problems can be mitigated towards something that makes Daima not so much a mediocre show, but that it's just really alright. In terms of the fight quality, one thing I always said about Daima is the idea that if they just shut up and let the characters fight, the show is actually fantastic. I will never complain about any of the fights in Daima because they're all pretty spectacular. There is no complaint for me on that, but a lot of the minutia in terms of the details in regards to the lore and the world building, if it was not something that was constantly related to Dragonballsuper and how does it fit into Dragonballsuper, you could have mitigated a lot of this, but instead we chose not to, and so-called Dragon Ball fans utilized their stupendous idiotic notions about theories that they had inside of their heads to try to promote the idea that this was something more than what it was. We are in a new continuity. Now, unfortunately, and God rest his soul, due to Toriyama's passing, we'll never get any true answers on what the meaning of all this Daima is. I mean, Toei can only do so much with whatever notation that Toriyama gave him before ultimately passing away. And whereas I respect Toriyama and all of his work and vision, I'm not going to lie about the redundancies and ununiqueness that came with Daima being just GT 2.0. So to really break down into this and get rid of that one out of the way immediately, of people who were still on the fence about this being GT 2.0, I mean, what more do you want? Super Saiyan 4. So you can meat ride all you want and say that, oh, it's canon now. But those people who are arguing against people to say, give it a chance that it doesn't have to be GT 2.0, well, how do you feel now, goofies? Because that's exactly what it turned out to be, GT 2.0. And it's not even a better GT. In fact, some of the same problems that were plaguing GT happens here. It's just that this is a lot shorter of a runtime. They had to get through a lot of stuff to try to satisfy the fan service for something like GT. Now, don't get me wrong, Ultimately, when it comes to the best qualities of Daima, they outshine all of GT any day of the week. But even now, when you look at the online landscape, most people are sitting here arguing as to whether or not Super Saiyan 4 Goku in Daima is anywhere near the same level of character writing and character buildup as Super Saiyan 4 Goku in the original GT. And let me go ahead and tell you right now, it's not. It's basically as worthless as Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta when it comes to its so-called plotting and explanation of how we got here. And don't give me that, well, it doesn't have this good explanation or this doesn't have a good explanation and so therefore bad writing is okay. No, we as Dragon Ball fans, I mean real Dragon Ball fans, not the people who secretly hate Dragon Ball or people who are just casual fans who think Dragon Ball is just a cartoon for kids and its only use is as a quote-unquote gateway anime and to getting you into anime, but it's not something that's meant to be taken seriously. Forget those idiots, okay? We're talking about we as real Dragon Ball fans demand better in terms of the writing quality. I'm not going to sit here and lie because as much as I respect Toriyama and love his work, to sit there and say that in the last few years when it came to him, he was a bit derivative because I never agree with the sentiment that he was a simplistic writer. Okay, I never agree with that notion. I always said that Toriyama had a lot of complexity and uniqueness inside of his writing style, and where he did have a lot of simplistic themes, those themes were something that he elevated to a granular level that was greater than almost any mangaka I've seen trying to promote the same style of themes. They did not compete. So I credit Toriyama not with being the best mangaka in the world, but personally one of my favorites, and definitely somebody who stands at the top 10 of mangakas of all time. That out of the way, this is just GT 2.0. He lost a lot of that uniqueness that came with his earlier works. I brought this up pretty much in the last video about what we all knew in regards to what Daima was going to be from the beginning, and I was trying to set aside its quality away from that aspect because let's be honest, going back to Super Broly, the Saiyan that we never seen before. This is a whole new brand adventure. It's not, it's just Broly. And we already had 3 versions of Broly. We already did that several times. Okay? Even superheroes is taken for more classical Toriyama works and falling into that whole let's take a superhero and sort of spin it on his head trope. It's not really unique. And I'm not trying to say that the writing is bad because of that. I don't think that really anyone can truly be unique. I mean, everything has practically been done. And the only thing that helps you stand out and be unique is how you take those stylings and shift them on their heads. But that one's easy to get out of the way because ultimately it doesn't matter that it's GT 2.0. We just need to get to the idea that you can no longer deny that that's exactly what it is because, well, that is exactly what it is. But getting into the actual 3 points that ultimately set this aside towards the idea of proof positive that I was right about literally everything, that there is no more debate, starting with the first one. How does this fit into Dragonballsuper? Well, as I said ad nauseum at this point, and for the few minor fans who were sit there with me, it doesn't. It never did, and you need to just accept that. What I was saying earlier was the point about that, is that if Daima's the new timeline going forward, then let's just focus on Daima as a new timeline. And you could mitigate a lot of the story problems. You can mitigate a lot of the continuity errors, a lot of the lore-breaking errors that comes with trying to pitch Daima as a predecessor towards Dragonballsuper. You can mitigate a lot of that stuff because there is no longer anything remotely related to the continuity that can work within Daima that would fit it into the Dragonballsuper timeline, whether it be the new lore on how the universe was started, or at least how the multiverse was started, the new lore around the Supreme Kais, or even the most minor bits of lore that would change the characters' interactions and how they interacted, like with certain things like the bugs. The bugs, for instance, you know, that sensu beans and how they're mass-produced, or the fact that Bulma even got de-aging bugs, you know, so why is she using the Dragon Balls? Now, technically, they only make your skin and stuff look younger, but Bulma was still eager to get those, and you'd think that she would mass produce them. Even if she wanted to take off years of her life, or at least go back to being younger by a number of years, it still doesn't matter because when are we ever going to be brought this up in Super? We never were. That she even already has something very similar to that, being the fact that she had essentially skin cream in the form of bugs. So it's just stuff like that that kind of just destroys it in terms of its overall continuity, which builds up to the big Super Saiyan 4 problem, because we're talking about the power scaling in relation to what these characters had going forward, especially once they ultimately ended up facing Beerus. We still will never get any answers how the Gods of Destruction connect, because they no longer can or don't. I mean, hell, this even ruins God Ki, because technically the God Ki and stuff that we're supposedly experiencing, or the God Ki they're supposed to be feeling, that are naturally connected, well, how do demons connect to that? Because they don't have God Ki. What they have is magic or demonic Ki. This is something that's entirely different, because as we keep constantly ad nauseum pointing out within Daima by everybody, that when Goku and them are utilizing their Ki, they consider it a strange type of magic, meaning that whatever the magic system in terms of how it works within the demon realm is entirely different from the natural Ki that would work with inside of the normal world, or the world with humans and stuff around. But no, we're never going to get explanations to that, because we were lied to for years. And so why even bring up God Ki? Like, how does that even function? How did it come about? How did demons create a whole new type of Ki? This doesn't make any sense. And so people keep trying to say it ties into Super, it ties into Super. It doesn't. These are a myriad of examples that completely destroy the lore of Super and tell you that none of this ties in and can't match. And it's not just plot holes. Anyone saying that is a complete idiot. That's just plot holes, so it can be explained away by plot holes. First of all, you don't know what a plot hole is and how that story-breaking mechanic doesn't actually help your case. That's a problem. It's terrible writing, and we should not just accept it, okay? You can't just say plot holes and then try to dismiss it, and therefore everything's still connected and everything's still canon. No, it isn't. It's connected and canon to itself. It's like people who try to bring in the games and stuff like that and say that they're somehow connected. They're not. We already had a new continuity that was actually put forth within the game that was supposed to be the interconnected canon that brought them together, that being Kakarot, which does away with the idea that the manga, the original manga and the original anime are no longer interconnected, because Toriyama's vision incorporated both of those things. And then incorporated aspects of certain other games, but it doesn't make those other games canon. It's because of how they're incorporated that doesn't make those games canon, but it does make aspects of those games canon. Like the whole Toa and Mira thing. Just because that's interconnected inside of a game like Kakarot doesn't mean that heroes and stuff. And as the game creators for Heroes and them pointed out, this is all different continuity that's happening at the same time as the other continuity, but it is entirely different canons. They don't actually coexist with each other and take place in the alternate timelines, or at least alternate structures. However, they do take place alongside each other and are canon to themselves, and therefore have some level of canonicity to each other, because it's all working on one continuity spectrum that is the Dragon Ball franchise. But that's the only connection that they have. If you are trying to sit there and say that, for instance, Xenoverse Goku is the same as Dragonballsuper Goku, you're a complete and utter moron who has no idea what you're talking about and doesn't understand how entirely game-breaking and shattering this would be in terms of holding together any semblance of continuity at all. And it's the same thing with Daima. Clearly, there is no structural continuity that would connect it towards Super. It is its own thing. Daima is its own unique beast. And I'm glad that if this is the canon going forward, that we can accept it as that. And that's how we should accept it, as that. Because, as pointed out by my several examples, there is no way of truly connecting these things, and you can't write it off as just plot holes or, ooh, I forgot. No, this is no oopsie, I forgot type territory. So ultimately, with the Super Saiyan 4 thing not being explained to help these guys, and the reason why I held off on actually even making this video is because I wanted to actually watch the remainder episodes, and I waited too. I hadn't actually been watching the episodes week by week. I had waited so I can binge them, because I wanted to get all that information fresh so I can have it and categorize it and catalog it, so that way being fresh in my head, and I wouldn't have to travel back week to week. I still have to ultimately look into this information, of course, and confirm it, but it doesn't actually matter, because ultimately I was proven right. That is first one. The second one, still sticking within the Super Saiyan 4 category, that was the whole thing. How is it that Super Saiyan 4, because this already was Super Saiyan 3. Super Saiyan 3 was already enough to sit there and point out how ridiculous it was that Vegeta never utilized that in Dragon Ball Super. But here's what happened. The second that Super Saiyan 4 came about, after the people stopped meat riding, they put something else inside of their buttholes of saying, well, no, of course it works. And the reason why they said it works was because of the Nineveh explanation. But then we find out that that's not true. Not only did the last episode completely confirm that, and of course I have all this evidence, you're seeing it on screen right now, but not only did the last episode confirm that, but even in the episode where it was initially pointed out, shows us the idea that there was something different there. Now, if you're watching this week to week, you may have your little stupid theories, and that's probably what you went on. But even that should have told you that there was something a bit amiss there, because the whole Nineveh connection was not that Goku ever needed Nineveh's help in order to utilize Super Saiyan 4, and the last episode confirmed that. The last episode confirms that not only did Goku already have it, but he trained with Buu to get it. So of course he lied with the whole Beerus situation, because Super Saiyan 4 is his strongest form, which he can go to at will, by the way. All Nineveh did was brought out what was already there. That's all he did. That's literally all he did, was brought out what Goku had already possessed. He already had Super Saiyan 4, but most likely due to his child bodies, and we'll get more into that later, because that was another point I was proven right on. Due to his child bodies, he didn't have the ability to use it. But once Nineveh ultimately brought out that potential that was already existing within Goku, he was able to utilize it in his child body. But the second he got his adult body, and then with episode 20 coming out, he basically proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he already had access to this form. So he just straight up lied to Beerus, because in all three continuities of Super, whether it be the movie, whether it be the TV show, or whether it be the manga, Goku says the same thing. The idea that Super Saiyan 3 is his maximum form, but we all know now, for beyond a shadow of a doubt, that that is simply not true, that he had Super Saiyan 4 this entire time. So for those people who are still sitting here and denying and saying that this connects to Super, it makes perfect sense. Super Saiyan 4 is not a massive plot hole, a massive thing that completely deconstructs and destroys the idea that Daima and Super take place together. Yeah. How do you feel now, stupid? Again, I was right. I kept saying this about the idea of Super Saiyan 4, about the idea of even Super Saiyan 3, with Vegeta's case, that none of it made any sense and cannot fit logically within the Super, and this only hurts it even more. So that, of course, you people, because people were like, oh, don't worry, it's all Nineveh. Of course it's all Nineveh. These are the same people who were telling you up and down that the reason why Goku and them, don't remember their adventures in the demon realm, and the reason why this can fit in the Super's continuity, because another thing I didn't touch on the continuity part was the biggest claim to fame was that Glory Hole, or Nineveh, were going to sit there and have everyone's memories erased, which, especially after the ending of episode 20, further proving that how stupid that was. Why would they ever do that? Nobody could ever prove why they would do that. It never made any sense why you would literally have these people risk their lives to save the entirety of the demon realms, to save all the three demon worlds, and that you would just make them forget. But no, as we saw with the Wish, Glory Hole just simply restored their adult bodies back. That's it. I'll get more into that a little bit later, but that's all he did. There wasn't no wish to forget. There wasn't a wish. So the fact that none of this that happened in Demon World is addressed, the fact that the continuity is completely warped, especially around the gods and gods' destruction, stuff like that, where Supreme Kai should know this information, especially considering he's attached to Beerus, he would understand this information. All of it's been turned upside of his head. Everyone being demons, the whole history with the Namekian people, it's not a plague, and turns out they were running from a civil war. Okay, it was enslavement and genocide and all that. Everything's been turned up inside of his head, and all these retcons are not good for the story. Well, let's just follow Daima's new timeline, okay? I mean, yes, the ridiculousness of turning all of Supreme Kai's people trannies into trannies is ridiculous enough, but they're naturally hermaphroditic. Is already something that's stupid, but the lore was never going to shape up into the way that you guys wanted. But so we all got disproven the idea that Goku could only access Super Saiyan 4 if Nineveh was there. He just drew out his potential, and therefore that's why, even if he weighed their memories, and that's the only reason Goku used Super Saiyan 4. Thank you, Daima, for putting out episodes 19 and 20 to sit there and tell you what hilarious nonsense that is. And you gotta notice how they've been silent. everyone who's sitting there came up with those stupid theories that it was all Nineveh are just suddenly silent. They're focusing on everything else. They're like, oh no, but just look at how cool Super Saiyan 4 is. Look how great it is. It's so cool. By the way, the design is pretty piss poor. I'm not gonna lie. It's not a good design. And I don't want to hear this whole my theories about Super Saiyan God. No, it's nothing to do with that. You're just ridiculous. You're being ridiculous, and you know that you are. It has nothing to do with Super Saiyan God at all. No offense. I'm not even hater of the color palette. I think that the red hair is okay. It's fine, but I am a fan of the original design. I think that one more aesthetically fits to what was Super Saiyan 4's purpose and what we were going for there. But again, that's besides the point, and that's an aside tangent that doesn't really need to be addressed. However, what I do want to sit here and go on about, because that's point number 2, the Super Saiyan 4 debacle, we're now going to point number 3 about the whole idea that I said they did get weaker when they got turned into kids. Everyone and their mother up and down swore that they didn't get weaker. It was just a key issue. These people do not understand how key works. If you do not understand how this works, and then Goku and Piccolo proved beyond a shadow of a doubt what I was saying was true. They were significantly weaker in their kid forms than they were as their adult forms. We've seen it throughout the series. There was always showcasings of signs of them being significantly weaker. And lo and behold, what's the second thing that happened there? Because you gotta love it. Goku, while fighting, right, he's sensing everything. He's looking at Gomas, and he tells Vegeta, it doesn't make any sense why we're gonna be fighting separately. Okay, everyone needs to be fighting together, right? That's the idea, is that everyone needs to fight together when they're in their kid forms, because they don't stand a chance otherwise. But you gotta love how the second they get their adult bodies back, and I wanted people to understand that Glory Hole didn't do anything with his wish but make them back into being adults. This was proven by Piccolo and Goku, because they not only didn't get Zenkai, because, you know, you see a lot of people online talk about oh, well, Goku and Vegeta got Zenkai boosted, so actually they're stronger, okay, they got stronger. No, their energy remained the same, as Goku and them pointed out. Their stamina was already significantly weakened, so they didn't get any stronger. They remained at the same strength level, but guess what? Just having an adult body made them significantly stronger, because as we saw, proof positive, base Vegeta was performing nearly the same level of damage and feeds in comparison to Super Saiyan 4 Kid Goku. And then when he turned to Super Saiyan 3, he completely surpassed him. So yeah, I was right again. Being turned into kids did weaken them. So for anyone sitting there still denying that, please actually watch the episode before running your mouth again, because you look ridiculous and you look stupid. It was never this just a key issue, or when Goku was saying that, oh, I need to adjust my body to be using as a kid. No, they actually did get weaker. I was one of the only front runners on that front saying that, and everyone was sitting there looking at me like I was crazy. They were like, oh no, they definitely are just as strong as adults as they are as kids. No, they're not. This was beyond proven within the episodes, and no, Glory Hole's wish didn't make them any stronger. He didn't wish return them to an adult body and also restore them back to full health. No, he just said return them to an adult bodies, and that's what happened. And then, of course, Piccolo and Goku prove, like I said, the idea that they actually didn't get any stronger. They were still running on the same levels of energy that they had as children as they do now as an adult. It's just that as an adult in an adult body, they are significantly stronger. I can't believe how long I had to actually make this video, and I have just been rambling my mouth off. But these are the 3 major factors that ultimately set Daima apart in terms of debunking everyone's notions and theories about these 3 major things. That, of course, being that it can fit into Super's continuity, the Super Saiyan 4 debacle, and ultimately deciding whether or not that as kids or as adult, what was the power level of everybody versus the other power level that they had when separating the 2 stages of their existence. So nobody forgot anything. There was never a wish to make everybody forget everything, and the fact that Super completely drives away the continuity from Daima, it just goes to show you that they are 2 different continuities, and you have to accept that. If you don't, you are living in delusion land. You're not living in reality, and that's still unfortunate for you. Ultimately, I was, of course, right, and I'm not trying to rub it in. And if you guys want my basic thoughts on Daima to kind of like finish up this video, I think that Daima ultimately ranges between somewhere of okay to good in some areas, but ultimately can be considered mediocre. If you want to sit there and try to compare it to Dragonballsuper and saying that this is supposed to fit into Super, and if certain material comes out later, now that Daima has officially finished, if certain material comes out later and says that this is supposed to be directly, no matter what you say, it's supposed to be directly tied to Super, then the show's quality is going to get even worse. It's going to range from at best mediocre to at worst downright bad, and it's going to turn to one of those Demon Slayer things. Because, you know, the biggest thing that Demon Slayer gets is the idea that, oh, it's a pretty terrible story, right? Now, I'm not saying that I agree with that, but that's kind of consensus, that it ranges from an okay to terrible story, but the animation carries it, right? If it wasn't for the animation being so good, and I don't want that to happen to Daima, I don't want that to happen to Akira's legacy, and I don't think his legacy would ever be destroyed by a bad project. I mean, Dragonball's had a few bad projects over its time of being in circulation, but, you know, that never tarnished Akira's legacy, and ultimately, I think that whatever comes next, if he still had a hand in it, I'm going to appreciate and take it as for what it is, as I did with Daima. But still, that's kind of what's going to happen if they ultimately say that this has to tie into Super. Then the show is going to go from quote-unquote mediocre at best to downright bad at worst. But as it stands right now, and the way that I'm looking at it without that official confirmation that this is its own new continuity, this is its own unique thing, then the show's really okay. And in fact, when you qualify the fights and add them into that, the show actually can be pretty good in some areas. So Daima is a mixed bag. It's kind of a mess, but ultimately, it's a pretty serviceable product, is what I would say I think personally of the show overall. Hopefully this does encapsulate all of my feelings on it, and that this will be sort of a like definitive video for anybody who watches it in relation to the idea as to whether or not, you know, if you still had questions about certain things with Daima, especially in his relationship with Super, then I can kind of point this out to you. But hopefully you actually did watch the show, and therefore you don't need me to point this out to you, but just to kind of stick it to the people who still ignorantly try to suggest the idea that this works hands down and everything is all connected, that this kind of is the defeater to that argument. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Vegeta! みんなにも戦わせてあげなさい。
ふざけるな。こいつを死んでも俺が倒してやる。
これ以上やるんだったらもう絶対に一緒にお風呂に入ってあげないからね。あげないからね。
All right, I gotta leave, okay?
John, we just started. Come on, man.
Listen, there's a lot to see in this life. Not wasting it here.
Weird, buddy. You're weird.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit that I have ever heard. Everyone's laughing, by the way, but it's true because everybody's heard it too. Everyone heard it, right? They look at all, everyone's like, yeah, big piece of dog shit.
And to all my Gummy Knights, new and old, just remember, this is a man's world, but it would be nothing without his brain and his bronze. And lying is indeed the most fun that a woman can have without taking off her clothes. Good night.
Super Saiyan 超好奇名前も知らないお玉にまたがり4000年のモンスターかき混ぜてたちまち仕上がり不思議なストーリー